I sing once again. Once again I look upon the cross where you died. I'm humbled by your mercy and I'm broken inside. Once again I thank you. Once again I pour out my life. We sing once again. Once again I look upon the cross where you died. And humbled by your mercy and I'm broken inside. Once again I thank you. Once again I pour out my life. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross, my friend. Thank you for the. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross, my friend. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross, my friend. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross. Thank you for the cross, my friend. Amen. Okay, we're gonna sing this song with clap. We don't have drums, so we need to clap in this time. Alright. Okay? Follow me by clapping like this. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. Leaning, safe and secure from all our life. Leaning on the everlasting arms. What a fellowship! What a fellowship! What a joy divine! Leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness! What a peace divine! Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all our lives. Leaning on the everlasting. Oh how sweet to trust in His tender way. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh how bright the light goes from day to day. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all our lives. Leaning on the everlasting. Leaning, safe and secure from all our lives. Leaning on the everlasting. What am I today? What am I today? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed grace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning leaning on the everlasting, leaning on the everlasting, once again, leaning on the everlasting arm. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. God sent His Son. They called Him Jesus. He came to love, heal and forgive. He bled and died to buy my pardon. On empty graves and to prove the Savior lived, because He lived, because He lived. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He knows the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. How sweet to hold, how sweet to hold our newborn baby and feel the pride and joy He gives. But greater still, the calm assurance this child can face a certain day, because Christ lives, because He lives. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He owns the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives, because He lives, because He lives. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He owns the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. And on that day, and then one day, I'll cross that river. I find my spot, the war and pain, and there's death. His way to victory. I see the lights of glory, and I know He reigns, because He lives. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He holds the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives, because He lives, because He lives. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He owns the future, and life is worth the living just because. After we sing, because He lives, because He lives. I can face tomorrow, because He lives. All fear is gone, because I know He owns the future, and life is worth the living just because He lives. And life is worth, and life is worth the living just because He last time, and life is, and life is worth the living just because He lives.
We sing again, God, I look to you.
God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like we do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. I love you. I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you, God. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah.
This time we sing again, God, I look to you.
God, I look to you. I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you. You're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom. You know just what to do. I will love you, Lord, my strength. I will love you, Lord, my shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you. I will love you. I will love you, Lord, our strength. I will love you, Lord, our shield. I will love you, Lord, my rock. Forever all my days, I will love you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Hallelujah. Our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah.
Yes, Lord, you're my shield, you're my strength, and you're my rock. In this time, I want all you guys to pray for this retreat, this worship service. May God open our ears and our hearts and pour grace upon us. Let's pray.
As a speaker, just to speak through you, just so that we can just listen to your word, Lord. We can find healing, we can transform the days of our lives, Lord. Heavenly Father, Lord, may not just be a temporary change, Lord, but may it be a permanent change in our lives. That change it, Lord. Help us to just really look forward to it, Lord, so that we can just go and move forward with the things that we have, Lord. So, Heavenly Father, Lord, I just ask, Lord, that you just be
Let's pray. God, just as we sang, just moments from now, we look to you, Lord. Where does our help come from? Our help comes from you. And so we lay down anything and everything that is overwhelming, anything and everything that is taking hostage of our mind and of our heart. And we say, Lord, move in the midst of us. Holy Spirit, we ask, beyond our imagination, beyond our ability to reveal yourself. You deserve all honor, all glory, all praise. Be glorified through this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Excuse me, sorry. 1 second. Good evening. Did you guys have a nice retreat so far?
Yeah.
You got to hang out, play games, fun games, yes. A lot of different things. I got a nap in, which was awesome. My daughter actually loves this church. Like, she just jumped in, and I think she wants to come to this church every Sunday. So you might see a child coming through the subway station by herself. But really, thank you, Pastor Sandy, thank you, Pastor Malky, and the pastor staff, just for welcoming us. And even though, we've just been here for a day, my wife and I really feel like we're just part of this community. It's weird. Because I speak at retreats, and usually it's like I speak, and then I feel like, because I usually go by myself, I don't take my family. But not being here with my family and my kids playing. She's best friends with Pastor Maki's daughter, and Pastor Stanley's kids are everywhere. Just being able to see some old faces. Just feel like this is like my church community. We have a retreat coming up next week, so I guess we've done 2 retreats in a row. But again, thank you. If you're just joining us, my name is Hungmin. It's my honor and privilege to be able to speak and to be able to open up Luke 15. That's all we really need to know about me. We're going to jump into Luke 15. Early this morning, through Luke 15, we saw the love the Father has displayed. We were reminded once again that God is actually indeed our loving Father. Right? The picture of the older son and the father, and how the older son is protesting, and the father comes out, and he's just revealing himself to be no ordinary father, and he just reveals his wonderful love. But this idea of God being our Father, and if you grew up in the church or been to church for a while, and when you hear people pray, we pray God as our Father, this can be very hard to hear for some of us, especially if you have been hurt by your father, by your earthly father. Especially if you do not have a great relationship, or you've never had a great relationship with your earthly father. I think it's a pretty difficult thing for us to accept, that God is our Heavenly Father. And the reality is, many of us, when we think about a relationship with an earthly father, it's not maybe this. It's probably not this. I'm a father of 2 daughters, and as we were worshiping, I was like throwing around, and a lady gently came back, and she's like, "You're not supposed to do that." I'm going to the paper. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm always messing up. I feel like I'm always messing up as a father. Throughout my weeks, I want to be this patient, amazing father like Luke 15, but the reality is I'm screaming, yelling, and begging, and doing whatever I can to just survive another day. Parents, you feel me? So it's really hard when we hear passages like Luke 15, and to think that God is our Heavenly Father, And again, if a relationship with the father is broken, like my dad, my father was born not too long after the Korean War. Is this mic like muddled? Should I use the wire mic? Are you guys okay? I think I sound better. Are we good? Okay. Just want to check. I don't want to go for like 30 minutes and then you guys are like, I didn't understand what you were saying at all. So my dad was born not too long after the Korean War. And like many children back then, he was born out of wedlock. It was like this crazy deal. Like my grandfather had many daughters. And back in the days, I mean, I love daughters. Daughters are awesome. Sons, I want to return to. But back in the day, I don't know why, but they loved sons to carry the family name. So my grandfather had one son, my uncle, my Kanadochi, and then it was all girls. But he was a rich man, and he had a lot of business. So he actually had a business trip to Seoul, and he met my grandmother, who was not his wife, and made a deal. If you can give me a son, I'll take care of you and the rest of your family. Because at this point, my grandmother was widowed after the war. And she had her own kids. So my grandmother said, if I give you this son, let's make a deal. So they made this deal. And 10 months later, or how long, I don't know how long it took, but my dad came out. You know, and my dad basically grew up with his mother not knowing about his father all his life. And then one day, this is the story I've heard, this is crazy. One day my grandfather shows up, when my dad's a lot older, and says, okay, I'm going to take my son back now. And my grandfather and his family is living near, Kosan is like way down south. Like near, not even near Busan, it's like way down south. And he takes my dad away from what he knows as a family, and he says, okay, this is your new family. This is your new mom. These are your sisters and your brother. And my dad, guess what he did? He ran away. And he was widowed for many years until he somehow ended up in the city of Daejeon. And he was just trying to survive. And he started fixing printers. And he ended up in this school in Daejeon. And the principal of that school happens to be elder of my mom's church. This is I mean, you're following me, but this is crazy. And that principal realized, okay, this young man has no family. He comes to work, he looks poor, he looks hungry. So out of compassion, this elder takes my dad in. He has 3 sons of his own. He took another boy. I'm like, if I had 3 sons, I would not take another boy. But he took my dad in. And through that elder, his love and kindness, my dad not only came to know the Lord, but met my mother. And they got married, went into ministry, and that was sort of their journey. And my parents got married really young. They were 20 when they got married. Had my sister at 21, and had me at 23. And some of you guys are like, what am I doing with my life? Right? They were so young. But looking back, just looking back what they have gone through as an adult now, to look back and consider what my father must have gone through, I'm realizing how hard it must have been for my dad to really understand what it means to be a father. He never had a father in his life. And I don't know what kind of relationship you have with your own father. Maybe, perhaps you had an amazing father, right? A father who's always been there for you, who championed you, who loved you, supported you. That's awesome. But maybe some of us aren't like that. Maybe some of us had a father who was absent. Maybe some of us had a father who was abusive. So if that's you, one, I'm sorry that you had that experience. But I'm hoping through our time in Luke 15, this parable about God being this amazing Father, and as Jesus, who knows God the Father best, shows us this wonderful picture of Father, that our understanding of fatherhood is redeemed. That when we think about God being our Father, we're not thinking, oh, God is like our earthly dad, broken, messed up. No. God is not like our earthly dad. God is actually the model of the Father that we look to. And that's really my hope as we unpack Luke 15. And I say this because sometimes I preach something like this, and I know there are broken relationships in this room, and I don't want to pretend like this is a light matter, or this does not exist. But I do want to say that our understanding of our earthly Father cannot lower or look down on who God is, and He is this wonderful Father. Amen?
Amen.
I wanted to say that so that now we can move forward in Luke 15. Earlier today, we went ahead and looked at the story of the older son. We kind of flipped the story, and we looked at the older son. Luke 15, whenever it is taught, usually it's about the younger son. That's why they call it the prodigal son, singular. But if you look to the story, we realize there's not just one son. There isn't just one son who's lost. Actually, the father has two sons, and both sons are lost. And earlier we looked at how the older son, who kept all the rules and did all the right things, still managed to break the father's heart. And to really rewind that story, we have to remember the context. Right? The context of the story which this is given, right? Luke 15, verses 1, 2, 3. So way before we get to the story in verse 11, actually, let's look at the context. The religious leaders, the older brothers of the story, come to Jesus, and what's their complaint? Jesus, if you are the rabbi, if you're the rabbi of God, how can you eat, spend time, and embrace these people of questionable characters? How can you accept them and receive them? And it's that Jesus is allowing whom they consider to be unworthy and undeserving younger brothers of the story to eat with him. So again, there are two characters in the story. The older brother, which represents the religious leaders, who comes to Jesus with a complaint, and now we get to, did I say younger brother? Older brother, who represents the religious leaders, and we get to younger brother, who actually is whom the religious leaders have called the sinners and the tax collectors. And we get to their story. Let's read from verses 11 to 24. Verses 11 to 24. Let me read for us. And Jesus said, there was a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose, my son, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they begin to celebrate. This is the word of God. Again, we come back to this idea of there's a father with two sons, and the younger one, now we're talking about the younger one, all of a sudden one day the younger one comes to the father and he says the most shocking thing. He says, Father, give me my share of the estate. In most cultures, especially this culture, in the Middle Eastern culture, sons receive their inheritance only after the father dies. Right? Those that are hearing this story, right? Jesus is telling this to the religious leaders and his disciples and the crowd. They cannot believe their ears. What the son is actually saying, if you think about the request, is that this is what he's actually saying. Father, I wish you would have been dead so that I could have my money and live my own life. Kenneth Bailey, the guy I mentioned, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, an expert in the parables of Luke, he says this. In his book, Cross and the Prodigal, he points out that such a request, the younger son's request, is unheard of in that culture. Indeed, it is unthinkable, right? Kenneth Bailey taught 40 years as a missionary professor in the Middle East. And he was so curious, he asked all of his students, and he said, has anyone ever made such a request in your village? He asked the students. And the answer is always no. It's no, that's crazy. Then he would ask again, if anyone did make such a request, what would actually happen? The answer is always, the father would beat him up. Father would kick him out of the house. The father would disown him. But the younger son, by demanding his part of the inheritance, what's happening is he's bringing great shame to his father. Earlier, the older son brings great shame to the father by refusing to go in and fulfill his duty. Well, the younger son is even more ridiculous. Right? The younger son brings even greater shame. And here's what we learn about the basic nature of sin through what's happening in our passage, right? Sin is not just about breaking rules. That's what we think. All sin is about us. There are a bunch of rules. If we break them, that's sin. Okay, that could be one definition, but sin is not just about breaking rules. For the younger son in the story has not broken any rules, but he has broken the relationship with his father. Sin actually is more about breaking a relationship than just rules. And this morning we saw the older son, he kept all the rules, right? Yet, he also managed to break the father's heart. Why? Because he did something that would break his relationship with the father. So sin, the nature of sin is not just about breaking rules, but really it's about breaking relationship with the Holy One. Yet, when we continue to read the story and hear Jesus, this father is very different. This father is no ordinary father. So how does the father respond to such an unthinkable request? Look at verse 12. Right? The father shocks everyone by yielding to son's request. In fact, he sells, right? Because we're talking about property. The word here is property. It's not just cash. It wasn't like father had $300,000 in the bank and said, okay, let me cash out. No. Back in the days, he just had property. He had cows and horses and barns and homes. So what he had to do was, he had to sell all of his property, get it evaluated, and cash out. And then at that point, once he cashed out, give each son their part of the inheritance. Right? Just imagine the pure shock on the faces of Jesus' audience. The father selling all of his property and giving each son their portion, and he is alive. What we have to also realize is that in their culture, a man's reputation was closely tied to his wealth. Here, the father allows his own reputation to be tarnished just so that he can fulfill his son's request. So one, people are going to find out that their younger son did this. It's a shame culture. But two, now the father has to sell all of his property, bringing his reputation is being tarnished because they were very closely tied. His reputation and his wealth, just so that he can say yes to his son. Again, he is no ordinary father. You see, the loving father will not force his son to love him back. Because love, when you think about it, love has to be a choice. Like, love cannot be forced. I mean, we as parents, we want to force our children to do what we want them to because we think that's love. But when you think about it, as children, if you're forced to do something, you don't feel like that's love. Love has to be choice. The father will not force his son to love him back. As painful as it would have been to see his son leave, his father allows his son to take off with his money. Verse 13. And so the son, as soon as he gets his money, what does he do? He takes off. He takes off immediately, yes, because he wants to live his own life. Yes, that's very clear. But more importantly, I think he takes off because he fears how others in town would treat him. Will deal with him. In fact, another thing we need to notice about this story is in their context, punishing a child was never just between a father and a son or a mother and a son. Punishing a child was between the town and the child. Punishment was largely corporal. Right? It was a corporate punishment. Which meant the town elders had every right to punish the son for bringing such shame to his own father. So he moves, the son, as soon as he gets money, he moves to a faraway country. He spends all of his money on reckless living. That's what the text says. Reckless living implies wild, expensive, loose living, which implies women, wine, and song. After months or perhaps years of squandering away his money, because it's probably a lot of money. The father seems like a wealthy man. There was probably a lot of money, so it probably took him a while to burn through all of that money. He finally finds himself completely broke. And to make the matters worse, there is a recession in the faraway country, in that city. So verse 15, 16, we're just going through the story. With no money, no friends, no social welfare, he's a foreigner, right? And a terrible economy. You would think a kid like this would just call daddy and go home. And we have friends like this in college who was not responsible, who just used their credit card to make a purchase. Maybe that's you, maybe you have a kid like that. But you know, if they get into money trouble, they're going to just call mommy or daddy and they'll take care of it. So the story takes a turn because you're assuming a son like this, he would just go home. But he does not go home. Why does he refuse to go home? Why doesn't he just go home? Again, in their culture, it wasn't just his father that he had to answer to. If it was just his father, I think he would have gone home. Every elder of the town will be there ready to shame, scorn, and punish him for returning home, squandering the father's money. Punishment was again carried out together as town elders. And for sure, village elders would be there to let him know he's not welcomed. To make the matters worse, he knows when he returns who's at home. It's not just his dad, it's his older brother. I told you earlier, I have an older sister, and she was a wonderful child. She would cry if she had A- in her report card. I would rejoice. My parents would be like, did you cheat on this test? You got A-? And they wouldn't believe me. But my sister, if she had A-, she would cry. She never did any. I remember she got in trouble once by my parents. Growing up, right? 18 years living in the home. Once in trouble because I actually lied and she did it and I did it. And my parents just punished her anyway. And I remember feeling so great about that actually. It was like the best day of my life. But she never got in trouble. He knows he's going to have to face older brother who's just like my sister, who will demand every dollar to be returned to the father. So what keeps the son away is guilt and shame. Guilt and shame, and it keeps him away from even thinking about going home. And you can just imagine as Jesus is telling this story, just think about the religious leaders. They're nodding their head. They're like, okay. And they probably thought, that's right, he best not come home. He better not even think about going home after losing all that money. And this is exactly what the religious leaders were doing at the temple gates. When these people whom they labeled sinners and tax collectors came near the temple gate, these people would stand there and demand a payment, would look at them and say, you don't deserve to be here. You can't be here. These religious leaders kept the door shut and demanded a payment and make sure only the right people were able to get in. So the younger son, instead of going home, what does he do? Remember, this is probably a Jewish man. This is a Jewish story at least. And Jesus is speaking to a group of Jews. And Jesus tells him, this young man, instead of going home, he gets a job as a pig farmer. Okay, pig farming, regardless whether you're Jew or not, because to Jews, pigs are considered unclean. But regardless of that, if you Google dirtiest jobs in the world, even now, pig farming is one of them. Anyone pig farmed before? Nobody pig farmed because it's probably very hard. You guys live in Bunda. Bunda is a nice place. Lands a job at a pig farm. And again, if you're a Jew and you farm pigs, that meant you literally hit rock bottom. There's no more going down. This is it. Your life means nothing if you're farming unclean animals. In fact, Jesus tells us in verse 16, he was so desperate. This man was so desperate and hungry that he wanted to eat what the pigs were eating. Yet no one gave him anything. I mean, could you imagine how desperate you must be? Have you been to a pig farm? Have you seen what pigs eat? Have you seen the way they eat? And if you think you're going to battle with his pigs for some food, that's the battle he'll never win. But he's so hungry and desperate, he's like, I wish I could just eat some of this, whatever they're eating. As he's there fighting for some scraps and just thinking about what happened to his life, the text tells us he realizes something. He comes to his senses. This is key. We must not miss this. What does he realize as he hit rock bottom? As he's there fighting pigs for some food, what does he realize? And his realization changes everything for him. See, verse 17, look with me. He says, how many of my father's servants have more than enough food, but I'm dying here with hunger? You see, despite all the shame and guilt that he feels, what finally gives him courage to even think about going home? What he realizes is that his father is actually good and generous. And no one, he says, no one in my house, no one who works for my father will have to fight pigs for some food. And he realizes actually my father is generous. He's actually good. And it's the generosity of the father that gives him courage to even think about returning. Perhaps some of us here, because of what you have done or what you have not done, you feel extremely unworthy and maybe shameful. Perhaps you feel utterly disqualified. Perhaps it's something that's happened in the past or something you're going through now. Perhaps you feel like you've gone too far or you've done too many things to actually deserve God's love. If that's you, I want to encourage you through this story. Do you see, the younger son, he does not deserve to come home. You're right. And you and I, we do not deserve to be loved by God. We do not deserve. That's true. Yet, the good news is that's not what qualifies you and I. So the encouragement, just like the younger son, right? If he thinks about himself, he's like, you know what? I do not deserve to return home. But when he thinks about who God is and his nature and his goodness, he begins to get up and say, okay, I'm going to head home anyway. I know I don't deserve it. I'm going to head home anyway because my father is good and generous. So my encouragement, if that's you, if you're feeling shameful and guilty and you're feeling like something, there is no way I deserve God's love, I want to encourage you, would you invite it back home? This is important. Verse 18 and 19, if you look, it's a three-part speech. He has this three-part speech with 3 points. 1, I have sinned against you. He repents. 2, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. He recognizes the consequence of what he's done. And 3, I will be one of your hired servants. What's he saying? I'm going to pay you back, Dad. I know I blew it. I know I spent all of your money. But you know what? If you take me back, I'm not going to be your son. I'm going to actually work and pay you back. Sounds like a pretty good plan. So on the way home, he rehearses the speech over and over again. He feels nervous. He doesn't know what he's expecting. He's worried about how the people will respond, or his own brother. And when he finally arrives near the city gate, far away from his home, verse 20, Jesus tells us while he was still a long way off, while he was still far away, his father saw him and felt compassion, ran and embraced him and kissed him. And you're like, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good for 2019. But that's actually shocking for people at the time. Right? Men back in the days, they did not run. They did not show affection. Right? So this is a shocking image of the Father that Jesus is showing us. And also a wonderful picture of God's love for you and I. He waits, the Father waits for a son that wanted him dead. And when he sees his son, he begins to run. And when he finally gets to his son, he embraces him and kisses him again. In those days, men did not run. So why does he run? That's the question. He runs, yes, because he's glad and excited to see his son. But he runs. But more importantly, he runs because he knows the shame his son might have to face when he reaches the city gates. The father knows fully well the humiliation and the punishment that waits at the gate. If any of the elders were at that gate, if his brother found out the son came back, they would be there at the gate to meet him and beat him. So the father runs, bringing shame to himself, so that his son would be avoid of his shame. He runs, bringing shame to his reputation, so that his son will be spared of the shame that he deserves. So the younger son, stunned by his father's reception. I mean, imagine the scene. Younger son probably feels guilty and shameful. So he doesn't know what to do. Father's kissing him, hugging him. He's like, okay, hold on, Dad. And he quickly tries to present his 3-part speech. Verse 21. Part 1, Father, I have sinned before you. He recognizes sin and repents. Part 2, I am no longer worthy to be called your son. He understands the result of his sin. But this is amazing. Before he can say more, part 3. What was part 3? Father, hire me as your servant. I'm going to pay you back. Before he can tell his father of his plans to pay him back, the father says, stop. If you look at verse 21, the father will not hear his son's plan of paying him back. This is the picture of the gospel, right? In the same way, when we repent and turn to God, He will not hear our plans to pay Him back. Jesus paid all of our debt. Therefore, all we need to do is simply turn and come home. Because when I first came back from my own journey of living away from God, when I first came back to church, I felt like I needed to serve more. I needed to be more devoted. I needed to make it to every morning prayer, to everything right, because I felt like I needed to pay my years of prodigal days back to God. Yet, when we look at the story, the Father will not hear the story. The Father says, no, I'm not going to hear you. There's no way you can pay me back. And instead, verse 22, the father calls one of his servants quickly, and he orders the servant to say, bring the best robe and put it on this son. Son who is filthy, nasty, smelly, working in a pig farm, couldn't afford anything. He comes and the father says, bring the best robe. Whose robe is the best? The best robe is the father's robe in the house. when we repent and turn around, God covers our shame and failures and brokenness with His own robes of righteousness. So the Father also orders His ring to be put on it. It's a signet ring. Right? When we repent and turn to God, He doesn't just welcome you and I back to the house, but He restores our authority and position in the kingdom. The signet ring was used as a stamp to make transactions and decisions in the house. The Father says, yeah, though you may have messed up, though you may have gone astray, now you're back. I'm not going to just receive you as a slave, but you're going to have authority in this house. In the same way, we turn to God. God will call you and I to lead and serve in His kingdom. Isn't that amazing? And I wake up every morning thinking, how can I be doing this when I live such a terrible life? And the Father orders the servant to bring sandals, bring shoes to be put on his son's feet. The slaves were without shoes, but sons and daughters always had shoes. And the Father tells the servant to kill the fattened calf. I mean, this is a big deal. Have you ever been to a country where they kill a pig or a cow? I mean, if you kill a pig or a cow with no refrigeration, guess who's invited to the party? Everybody's mother, they're all invited to the party. And the calf was only reserved for very special guests. The Father will invite the whole town to celebrate the return of His Son. And He says, for my son, this son of mine was dead, but is alive again. He was lost and is found. And when we think about the robe, the ring, the shoes, the cow, isn't this the picture of the gospel? Isn't this the gospel that Jesus is presenting to us, how God receives us? See, when we come to God with our filth, He covers us with His righteousness, and His righteousness restores us into our true identity as His sons and daughters. Along with our identity, we are invited to partner with Him in His mission as His hands and feet. That's the gospel. Again, He is no ordinary Father. So I want to speak to all the younger brothers and sisters in this room that are here today. It is safe